Hey guys, welcome back to TaleTime. In this video, my wife of 32 years betrayed me with a coworker and thought that she could get away with it. I had different plans though and taught her a lesson. Here is what happened. So the title story starts like this. It was a Tuesday morning, like any other, when my life got turned upside down. I was getting ready for work, making some coffee in the kitchen while my wife Karen was still asleep upstairs. Our son Tyler, who was 22 at the time, had moved back in with us temporarily after graduating college while he got on his feet with his first job. He was still sound asleep too. I will never forget the moment Tyler came trudging down the stairs looking like he had seen a ghost. "Dad, you need to see this," he said with this pained look on his face, holding out his phone to me. I walked over and glanced at his phone screen. It was a screenshot from a dating app, Tinder to be very specific, and there was a photo I instantly recognized as my wife Karen, with her name and age showing as if she had an active profile. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What the hell?" I muttered under my breath in disbelief. Why would my wife of 32 years possibly be on a dating app behind my back? It had to be some kind of mistake. We had been together since college, sweethearts in our late teens. Yeah, we had our ups and downs like any long marriage, but genuinely happy and faithful to each other this whole time, as far as I knew. Tyler looked just as confused and disturbed as I felt. I was showing this girl I've been talking to on Tinder my new apartment, and well, Karen's profile popped up in the stack. He shook his head too. I swiped right without even looking close at the picture at first, but then it hit me why she looked so familiar once we matched. This could not be real. My mind raced trying to rationalize it. Maybe an ex was just using an old photo of Karen as a sick joke or something, but then Tyler showed me the rest of her sparse bio info that was an exact match for my wife's details. I felt numb, betrayed, like I'd been living a lie this whole time without realizing it. The coffee in my hand went cold as I struggled to process what I was seeing and hearing. "I need to get to the bottom of this," I muttered, resolve slowly taking over the shock. "Don't say anything to your mom yet, let me figure out what's going on first." Tyler nodded solemnly, and we both tried our best to act normal as Karen came down a little while later, oblivious to the bombshell revelation that had detonated in her previously seemingly happy home. Like any cheating story, the signs were there in hindsight after finding out the truth, but you never truly want to believe it about the person closest to you. Karen had been spending longer hours at work lately in her marketing role. She said it was just because they were understaffed and temporarily swamped with a big campaign in the pipeline. She was coming home most nights looking exhausted and overwhelmed, so at the time I did not think much of it other than feeling bad for her and trying to help out with more household chores. There was also the random day a few weeks earlier when I came home from the gym to find Karen frantically rushing to change out of a nice date night type of outfit into more casual home clothes. She blew it off as having grabbed the wrong thing in a hurry that morning and just changing into something more comfortable. And probably the biggest red flag was how our intimacy had dwindled from nearly non-existent the past couple months. At first I figured it was just normal cyclical ebbs and flows that any long-term couple goes through, but Karen's constant saying that she was just too stressed or tired from work took on a more ominous context once I realized she was likely sleeping with someone else. Looking back now, of course it's all so clear that she was having a full-blown affair right under my nose, but none of the pieces quite added up at the time. Not until I hired a private investigator, at least. I spent the next few days driving myself crazy with obsessive thoughts and worst-case scenarios. Who was this other person Karen was seeing? How long had it been going on? Why would my wife of over 3 decades betray me like this without explanation? It was eating me up inside, so I finally decided I needed answers, no matter how ugly the truth was. I found a reputable private investigator company through some online research and hired them pretty much on the spot to trail Karen. Within 48 hours of beginning surveillance, the PI had already snapped photos confirming my wife's affair. Picture after picture of Karen leaving work and immediately rushing to meet up with a single man at a hotel not far from her office building. The PI's written report included descriptions of the tenderly affectionate way Karen greeted this mystery man upon arrival before disappearing into the hotel together for 2 to 3 hours each night. My heart shattered into a million pieces seeing that photographic evidence. There was no more denying the soul-crushing reality. My wife was having a full-blown full-blown extramarital affair. With who and how long was still unknown until the next batch of surveillance came in. During the second week of digging into Karen's secret life, the PI was able to snap a clear picture of her lover's face. I felt like vomiting when I saw who it was, not just some random guy, but Kevin, a close friend from college who I had known for nearly 35 years and the godfather to our son Tyler. Kevin and I had been thick as thieves all through our university days, eventually being best man at each other's weddings and remaining close like brothers for decades afterwards. His kids and mine were all born around the same time, and we took family vacations together every summer, while Karen and Kevin's wife Amanda got along great too. We were each other's biggest supporters through all of life's milestones and tribulations. So the fact that my lifelong best friend was the one that was betraying me with my own damn wife, that made the betrayal sting worse than I could possibly put into words. Basically like gasoline poured over the already raging dumpster fire, decimating my heart. As hard as it was, I tried to remain strategic and not confront Karen or Kevin yet, not until I could process this emotional napalm strike and formulate some kind of long game. Because the white-hot rage coursing through me in that moment demanded I hit them back every bit as hard as they had tried to destroy me. I certainly wanted to get petty immediate revenge through the cruelest jeers or insults imaginable, calling them both worthless, degenerate scumbags they were for stabbing me in the back so heinously. Maybe I would even want to get physical with Kevin, my former so-called brother who backstabbed me more ruthlessly than I could have fathomed from someone that close. But I knew those heated actions born of fury would not be enough payback to truly make them feel the soul-crushing devastation I felt. Not just in that moment, but the years of unforgivable deceit from Karen and the ultimate betrayal of trust from someone I considered family, aka Kevin. Make no mistake, I wanted to absolutely ruin them, destroy their reputations, their jobs, their finances, every aspect of their waking lives, just as they had vaporized my own world into a smoldering crater. Show them what real anguish felt like day in and day out, instead of letting their tawdry little affair continue obliviously in selfish bliss. So then, I bided my time, silently poring over the photo and video evidence from the PI day and night, seething and plotting my intricate web of vengeance. Because I wanted it to be calculated, methodical, and utterly devastating, not just explosive and immediately over with. Karen and Kevin's downfall needed to be a meticulously orchestrated downward spiral from which they could never fully recover, even after paying the ultimate price. I was gonna ruin their lives not once but twice over, mentally and financially demolish them to their cores. And well, the mental torture started subtly at first, leaving random printed out photos of Karen and Kevin together at our house, where she would find them in painfully conspicuous places, inside her makeup compact, slipped under her sun visor in the car, tucked inside her purse. Just that sickening visual reminder of her infidelity would leave her paralyzed with guilt and dread as the rocks in her stomach grew heavier by the day. Of course, I also forwarded copies of everything to Kevin's wife Amanda, so she could see the full truth of her husband's treachery against their own lifelong friend. I pitied Amanda to an extent, but reveled in Kevin feeling the wrath of his devastated spouse over committing such a grievous act of betrayal. Within a week, both Karen and Kevin were unraveled bundles of nerves, certain that they were going to get found out publicly at any moment. Their affair had likely started as a tawdry sexual thrill, quickly morphed into a claustrophobic prison of mutual guilt and distrust where even looking at each other caused panic over being seen together. With the initial wave of shock and awe behind me, phase 2 was economic Armageddon. Strip them of their financial security and independence that let them selfishly chase their sordid fantasy at my expense. See, Kevin was not just my college buddy, he worked under me as a senior operations manager for the same company I was a vice president at. So after reviewing the legally binding non-disclosure and morality clause contracts we both signed when getting hired all those years ago, it became crystal clear that Kevin's egregious breach of trust and despicable personal violation against his superior fully warranted immediate termination. Things quickly unraveled for him when I called an emergency board meeting and had his affair with my wife presented as ironclad grounds for firing him on the spot. Especially considering that he also spilled out company secrets to my wife, which was evident in footage of him at the hotel, text conversations, emails, the works. So then basically Kevin's lucrative $180,000 per year job, company car, and a fat 401k were all vaporized in an instant thanks to his indiscretions. So now with Kevin's primary income source nuked from orbit, the dire financial ramifications quickly compounded. Within weeks, his shell-shocked wife Amanda understandably filed for divorce once she had time to process the full extent of his selfish betrayal. So long to that dual household income they had depended on. Meanwhile, I turned over enough evidence of Karen adulterous activities to take her down a similar path of destitution. See, her marketing agency employers had strict conduct policies around dishonest moral turpitude that put their reputation at risk, such as one of their senior directors carrying on an affair with a superior's husband, for instance. So then when I approached Karen's boss Diane with the truth, complete with photographic proof, she was utterly appalled and disgusted. This is the kind of sleaze that could completely undermine everything we have worked for as a company. Diane fumed, already picturing the avalanche of bad PR and potential client exodus that scandal could unleash. And then, within 72 hours, Karen's 20-plus year career at the agency was over, terminated for gross misconduct, transgressions, and fundamentally lacking any semblance of ethics or integrity the company coveted. Just like Kevin losing his position, Karen lost every scrap of her own income and financial security thanks to her despicable choice to disrespect me and our marriage so egregiously. All in all those years of hard work and professional achievements flushed down the drain because they thought they could have their little fling behind my back without consequences. The sick satisfaction of reducing them to the same level of devastated poverty and hopelessness they subjected me to still brings a faint smile to my face. With both Kevin and Karen now jobless pariahs in our social circles and wider community, the isolation truly began to set in as the walls closed in around their perverted fantasy. I made sure to go scorched earth with absolutely anyone in our mutual friends circles that supported them, divulging every last incriminating detail and shred of evidence so nobody would want any association with these unfaithful people. Before long, the only two people Karen and Karen had left were each other, two of them now untouchable outcasts exiled from all their previously respected standing due to their own reprehensible actions. In the end, when the dust had finally settled, Kevin and Karen had both declared personal bankruptcy and lost nearly every asset to their names beyond the cheap roach-infested apartments they spitefully shared after imploding their lives for one another. In the end, all they were left with were the regrets, the disgrace, and the harsh daily reminder that their choices had burned every last bridge around them. Of course, in case you were wondering, I also got a divorce, and it all went well for me. Less so for Karen and Kevin, let me tell you. Either way, I may have lost my wife of over 3 decades and best friend in one cataclysmic bang, but I regained my sense of self-worth and inner peace by excising their cancers completely over the course of nearly 2 years. Was my revenge scheme obsessive? Probably in hindsight. Did I take things too far at certain points, letting the hurt and anger consume me for a time? Most likely. But I don't lose one wink of sleep over the paths of misery and destitution I put Kevin and Karen on through my meticulous planning. Seriously, they got exactly what they deserved. And these days I am a new man living a simpler but infinitely more content life, surrounded by people who actually give a damn about me, while Kevin and Karen wallow in the wreckage of their hollow, regret-filled existences. And yeah, my dear viewers, I gotta say that was an absolute roller coaster of a story, but to take it even further, I found a very emotional story in the comments, and I think it's worth sharing. So this person on Reddit wrote, "I've never experienced infidelity in a marriage myself, but I did have to go through some seriously messed up drama with an ex-girlfriend cheating on me years back when I was in college. Nothing quite to this outrageous extent, but it was still absolutely soul-crushing at the time. See, I'd been dating this girl, Alyssa, for almost 2 years, and things were getting pretty serious between us. We had met during freshman orientation and just totally hit it off from day one. Similar senses of humor, laid-back personalities, just very compatible. I was definitely head over heels for her. Anyway, fast forward about 20 months into our relationship, and this guy Mike started working at the campus bookstore that Alyssa and I both had jobs at too. Well, apparently Mike had been pretty relentlessly flirting with Alyssa for a while, always finding excuses to come over and chat her up, make her laugh, that kind of thing. I didn't really think too much of it at first because I trusted Alyssa completely and did not suspect she would ever reciprocate. But boy was I naive. One night after my shift I came back to the apartment Alyssa and I shared just off campus to find her and Mike getting incredibly hot and heavy on the couch. Clothes were strewn everywhere and there's no mistaking the indecent acts I walked in on. I seriously felt like I'd been drifting in a dreamlike trance, unable to process the unbelievable violation unfolding right in front of me. There were a lot of tears, screaming, throwing of objects, just an utterly chaotic scene as I kicked Mike out and forced Alyssa to come clean about how long the affair had been going on. As it turned out, she had been sneaking around with him for over 2 months under my unsuspecting nose before I finally caught them in the act. I was absolutely gutted. Now, in my case, the circumstances were clearly not as high stakes or long-standing as in OP's story. We were just a young college couple without a marriage, assets, or decades of trust intertwined, but I think that made the heartbreak and feelings of disorienting betrayal hurt just as much at the time, if not more so, since it was my first adult relationship born of real intimacy and trust. And unlike the guy in that tale, I definitely did not have the iron-willed fortitude or scheming capabilities to construct some long-con form of explosive vengeance on Alyssa and Mike. I just sort of moped around for a few weeks in a hungover depression while my buddies tried forcing me into rebound flings or getting belligerently drunk every night to cope. This is not exactly the healthiest path to recovery, but we were stupid kids fresh into adulthood without much life experience yet. Luckily, I ended up just having to churn through the emotional turmoil by completely separating myself from Alyssa, Mike, all the social circles, pretty much anything even remotely associated with that dismantled portion of my life. And now, years later, a friend of mine who's still in contact with Alyssa and Mike just told me that Alyssa ended up as a total drug addict that couldn't get anything done in her life. Meanwhile, Mike still lives with his parents and does not even have a job. So, what can I say? Maybe I got cheated on, but in the end, my life is better than theirs. Good riddance. And yeah guys, with this, unfortunately, we have reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the story today, and if you did, please don't forget to subscribe to TaleTime and come back tomorrow for another daily video. Thank you so much for listening.